Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Necromancy Stories, no, Valentyne Stories Necromancy. In the last episode, Rave really embarrassed himself in front of everyone because he can't do shit for magic, and everyone was really shocked that he didn't even try to use it, since he's developed the ability. But now Hyde's turning invisible, and he could fuck us at any time he wanted. He could take off all his clothes and just sneak up behind us. We'd never see it coming. Ugh. We could guess the shape of his body only through his clothes. And I also saw the shape of something else in his pants. It was as if the rest didn't exist anymore. I even felt like I could pass my hand through him without encountering any obstacles except for that throbbing dick. Actually, it was a lot more interesting magic than being able to change the hair color of others. The base is the same as usual, so the consistency, and unless I'm wrong, expansion is still not within your reach. It's pretty disappointing. Look at his head just pop back. I don't think so. I disappear instantaneously and reappear faster and faster. Certainly, and Mr. Jetty's thing had bigger wings than before. Don't be satisfied with these bare progress. Mr. Fisher, you will never be able to push the boundaries of your gift with this state of mind. I was expecting a little better from you. I've been told that you study regularly, whether at the library or by training in your spare time. If you dedicate so much time to your studies, why is there no more blatant progress? He who had been very understanding about me was suddenly uncompromising towards Hyde, and I had a hard time understanding why. I didn't even know what progress he was expecting from him. Hyde was making himself invisible. What could he do better than that? Excuse me, sir? There must be something I don't get. Hyde is already at his maximum, isn't he? If his power is to make himself invisible, he can hardly do better. I had finished my sentence in a very soft voice, already regretting it. I was almost expecting Mr. Valence to tell me to let the adults talk to each other, as my uncle did when I tried to take part in his conversations. My comment amused Hyde, who answered me instead of our teacher. I don't know if you notice, but because of my clothes, you can see me even when I make myself invisible. You can also touch me, which is not very practical when I want to move around without being noticed, but it is very practical for when I spot you in the bath and your hole is quivering for me. All it takes is a little collision and I'm spotted. And note that any magic can evolve, Mr. Rabier, even the unusual. To extend one's power to their clothes, to become intangible, to make certain objects invisible, and even when they are at a distance, magic knows only the imagination of the will of its users. Do you have any other questions? No, sir. My interruption was the last of the lecture. After answering my question, Mr. Valence asked us to continue training while he was taking notes. As the hours passed, I hoped to hear another bell ringing. Unfortunately, that wasn't the way the school worked. A bell announced the beginning of classes, but it was up to the teachers to decide when they would end, and ours seemed ready to keep us as long as possible. I had seen other students leave their classroom for a good half hour when he finally decided to leave us alone. Stopping, sending wind squalls in every direction, I felt a very pleasant fatigue numbing my muscles, as if I had run for hours. I let myself fall to the ground with a relieved sigh. I wiped a drop of sweat off my chin, looking up at Carrie, who was gulping down the contents of a gourd as if he hadn't drank in days. I never thought that practicing magic was so tiring. Yeah, using it only 10 times in your life must not be as hard. That's why we have physical education classes, so the body can follow the intensive use of magic, so you don't end up like him. Carrie showed a blonde mass stretched on the ground, breathing heavily. Are you okay, Rainin? Will you live? Do you see me asking personal questions? Don't worry about him, Rave. I know how to get him back on his feet. Carrie lifted his flask over Rainin's head and poured the contents on him. Certainly used to this kind of attention. Oh, ooh. I bet Carrie's maybe blown his load on Rainin's face before. I don't know, that thought just suddenly crossed into my mind. Rainin rolled to the side to avoid the attack and ended right next to me. His movements raised a thick cloud of dust that triggered a monumental cough for me. It managed to cover Rainin's swearing, protecting him from Mr. Valence's sanctions. Our teacher had attended the scene without saying a word. His right eyebrow raised so high it had disappeared under his bangs. I saw him add some notes to his notebook before tearing the first sheet to hand it to Carrie. To think, you managed to get only 1 hour of additional practice. Your childish attitude is costing you 19 more. Carrie took the sheet with a casual gesture and shoved it into his pocket without losing his smile. No regrets. At this stage, it wasn't courage anymore, but temerity. I was sure that if Carrie hadn't put the sheet in his pocket, Mr. Valence would have grabbed it out of his hands and added another 40 hours. In any case, that was what his glare suggested. Mr. Rabier, come forth, please. Yes, sir. I got up in the second, raising a new cloud of dust in my haste. Mr. Valence turned a few pages from his notebook until finding the one he was looking for. Your constitution and endurance are quite acceptable for a first-year student. You even have a considerable lead over some of your comrades. A groan of protest was heard on Rainin's side. However, this is the only point on which you are on point. It will be necessary to fill your gaps as soon as possible if we want the classes to be of use. I think sharing knowledge is the best way to progress efficiently, so if your classmates want to help you study for the next few weeks, maybe even the next few months, you can catch up more quickly. What do you say, gentlemen? Who's willing to help? He turned to 3 boys with a huge smile on his face. None of them uttered a single word, but their eyes said a lot about what they thought about this idea. It didn't seem fun for them to spend their spare time helping the new kid become a better mage. But nobody dared to say it out loud. Anyway, Mr. Valence didn't really ask for their opinion. He asked to be polite, but meant that they would have to help me study whether they wanted it or not. Their fate wasn't yet completely sealed. They still had a chance to get out of this if one of them decided to volunteer, but obviously no one was willing to sacrifice themselves. Seeing that none of them said a word, Mr. Valence's smile widened. Well, since no one's willing to make the first step, let's make you choose your study assistant, Mr. Rabier. I strongly advise you choose Mr. Leroy. He is serious, and his weak point being your strong point. You would have a lot to learn from each other. I heard a squeak on the Rainin side. Oops. Well, isn't it better if I study with my roommate? Not necessarily. You'll spend hours with your study assistant on daytime, so you might get tired of each other if you spend that much time together. Everyone needs a little privacy. Ah, I didn't see it that way. It was time for me to choose who I wanted to be with most of all. Wait, to be with most of the time. I didn't know it yet, but this simple choice is about to change my very existence. So much I still wonder what would have happened had I chose someone else. Would everything have been the same? Would I have had to make such hard decisions? Would he have had to live through all that if I hadn't been there? And more than anything, would he have fallen in love with me? Oh my god. Choose to study with Hyde, Rainan, or Carrie? This is going to decide who I fall in love with, who I spend the rest of my life with, oh god, this is a big decision. I could be with the quiet boy, the annoying bitch Shota runt that I'm gonna make my bitch, or the foreigner. I mean, I've been talking about how much I want Hyde to pry into my hole with his invisible, throbbing dick. I think that's what I have to choose. Hey, I thought you wanted to get inside my hole. Was that all a lie? I mean, not that I actually wanted you to anyway. I just heard Rainan's voice. He was calling for me. I'll be inside that hole. No. Aww. Well, that was a fun little game. I'm really excited to see the full game. That was pretty good. I'm kind of growing on the little runt, the little bitch. I kind of want him inside me. I don't know. I don't know, maybe. But thank you guys for watching, and I guess this is a really short episode. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I really don't know what I'm gonna do, actually, but see you guys next time. Bye!